Thank you, Bruce. We continue to stand with the people of Ukraine, and I think the whole world is admiring the strength and tenacity of President Zelensky and the great, strong people of Ukraine who are pushing back on Putin's barbaric invasion of these great people. But they need help. And there's a number of things that they've laid out. It's time for the United States to deliver and do our part to help the people of Ukraine to push Putin back. But one of the big pieces of leverage that President Biden gave Putin early off in his administration was on energy. And this is where President Biden can do something. Today, he's probably going to announce that he's reversing course, where just a few weeks ago he was begging Putin to produce more oil. Today, hopefully, he will call for a ban on Russian oil. The challenge is that President Biden still won't say yes to American energy, because to replace that Russian oil is the real critical step. And first of all, President Biden, stop begging dictators to produce the energy that we need here in America. Don't go to Russia. Don't go to Iran. Don't go to Venezuela when the answer is right beneath our feet. It's time for President Biden to say yes to American energy. And too often he's turned his back on the energy that we make cleaner, as my colleagues point out, than anyone else in the world. Oil is still going to be needed to run not only our economy, but the economies all around the world. And so the question is, where do we get it? And if they're worried about carbon emissions, we emit a whole lot less carbon to make energy producing oil and natural gas here in America than if it's made in Russia, or if it's made in Iran, or if it's made in Venezuela, or those other countries that President Biden is begging to produce the oil when it should be made here. Just last week, President Biden came to give a State of the Union. And in his speech, one of the things he said is, let's make more things in America. Except his words ring hollow when he says no to American energy, when people across the country are fed up with, just look at today, the highest price for a gallon of gasoline in the history of America is today. If you're filling up your tank, you're feeling the pain of a failed Biden strategy on energy, because he's made our country dependent on foreign sources of oil when we could produce enough here in America. Specific things he did, of course, as my colleagues pointed out, the Keystone Pipeline. That's oil from Canada. They can send more oil through the Keystone Pipeline than we get from Russia. And he said no to that. There's just days before Putin invaded Ukraine, President Biden put a ban on all new leases and permits for oil and gas, all of them across America. Federal lands, private lands, banned it. He can reverse that today, and he needs to. Not a single new permit for a pipeline anywhere in America, or an LNG permit where we can be exporting more natural gas to our friends around the world. There are dozens of those permits sitting on the Biden administration's desk, ready to go, privately funded, to send secure American energy, cleanest in the world, to our allies so they don't need to get it from Putin or any other bad dictator. And when you think about the cost, just leading up to the invasion, Putin was pocketing $700 million a day from selling his oil to United States and Europe. Those days need to end. President Biden can end that today. And we would stand with him, but we continue to call on President Biden to do the right thing, say no to Russian oil, but then say yes to American oil. He can do it with the stroke of a pen, and we stand willing to work with him to get that done. We're going to continue to urge that to happen. We'll be happy to take some questions.
Another one of the things that President Zelensky has laid out that he'd like to see from the West and from the U.S. is for NATO to impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine. I wonder what you think of that request from him.
Yeah, I know some of our colleagues just got back from Poland yesterday, and we're talking about that and a number of other initiatives. Obviously, those are all being discussed right now, as well as the different missile systems. He's asked very specifically for more surface-to-air systems. He's also asked for fighter jets. And I know there are conversations happening with a number of NATO countries that have the ability to provide Ukraine with the kind of planes that they could use, where their pilots are trained to use those planes. We could help those NATO countries as well. So all of that is being discussed, but time's of the essence. And this is where the Biden administration's moved incredibly slow months ago, when President Zelensky was asking for some of the basic missile systems that he still doesn't have today. Months ago, he was asking for those, and he was told no by the president.
back a little bit. Given where we are right now, what rethinking can be done on President Trump's withholding of military aid to Zelensky as he pressured him to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? And would you have done anything different in 2019 if you had known, the importance of Zelensky and Ukraine in this moment today?
Well, first of all, and you look at that conversation, President Zelensky had called President Trump to thank him for the leadership that he provided. In fact, when Zelensky got elected, he said he modeled his campaign after President Trump's. And ultimately, he got the relief money that he was asking for. If you go back to when Joe Biden was vice president, he bragged about how he withheld $1 billion in aid to Ukraine when Joe Biden was vice president, because he said he wanted a prosecutor to get fired, who ultimately, from reports we saw, was fired. But President Trump stood with President Zelensky, and in fact, the two of them had a really good relationship. And when President Zelensky was asking for things like Javelin missiles that the Biden and Obama administration said no to, President Trump said yes and actually helped Ukraine get those tank-busting missiles that they needed and, frankly, they've been using. They could have surely used some of those surface-to-air missiles that they were asking for just a few months ago that President Biden said no to.
Last question. Do we, if this ban on Russian oil, if it doesn't work, if Putin comes back and says, I don't care, you can ban my oil, if it doesn't work, do we just keep arming Ukrainians until they just can't fight anymore?
Well, they're fighting with incredible strength and resilience. And so I have confidence that the people of Ukraine are going to continue to push back. And I think Putin miscalculated the will and the determination of the people of Ukraine. But where this really works is if President Biden not just says no to Russian oil, we shouldn't be getting it anyway, even before the invasion of Ukraine. But you need to say yes to American energy to replace it. Our country's economy, as well as other allies all around the world, still use oil every single day. The question is where they're going to get it from. I would argue don't get it from Russia, but don't also go and beg countries like Iran or Venezuela to provide our needs. We can provide our needs here in America, and we were providing all of our needs and exporting energy to our allies all around the world. President Biden shut that down. He was proud of it. I hope he has a change of course, because Americans are paying the price and our European allies are paying the price for Biden's failed energy strategy.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll do one last question.
Real fast on the omnibus. Do you anticipate there will be a lot of Republican support, especially because it includes the Ukraine aid package? And is that something you think leadership is going to be encouraging?
We haven't seen a final package yet. I know there's talk that it may get filed this evening. We would like to see it. The final text. I'm very proud of the work that Kay Granger and her staff have done to make sure that our nation's defense is properly funded, because that was up in the air, and they've resolved that. They've got an agreement to properly fund defense and to keep important riders like the Hyde protections on life. Those are all protected as well. We still need to see if it's going to be multiple packages to vote on. That decision hasn't been made by the Speaker, but we're obviously very supportive of the defense side of this, and we would like to get that done quickly. Thank you all.